Hi. I've never gone live
Hi.
before, so I didn't exactly know how to do it.
Oh, sorry. I just assume everyone. So maybe
Oh, it's okay.
I will absolutely send the next thing with instructions.
It wasn't terribly hard. My dog is here with me, so I'm giving her her favorite thing, so hopefully she'll be a chill girl this whole time.
It's so adorable.
No, she's just taking it to lay down with.
Excellent. Hi, Kat. Hi, Sandra. I'm just pulling up everything. Oh, really funny news
Thank you,
is
Sandra.
um Ashley, who is currently reading your book, she's about halfway through. She's really liking it. So she was like, "Oh, my friends need this." Did not tell me she was ordering it. And I was looking at it. She was like, "Don't you dare." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "Don't buy it." I was like, "Why?" She was like, "Because it's going to be there on Thursday." I was like, "What? What? Why are you buying me stuff?" But yeah, so we're getting a copy of it in the mail on Thursday. Is everything okay?
Yeah, am I on?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. Was it Ashley?
Yeah, Southern Book Lover,
Okay.
actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched her part one yesterday and I was dying.
She is hilarious. I love every time she
Yeah.
posts reaction videos because then I know where all the good quotes are.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I'm gonna go ahead and give everyone about like 2 minutes to kind of filter in, because we did have some requests for people to come in and they're expecting it to go live at 8. So do you have a copy of your book handy?
Yes, and I have the new one as well.
Yes. So essentially, I split it up into like intros, any events you've got going on, kind of some information about you as an author. The book, will do like an author segment for like the first 45 minutes, and then the last hour of it will be solely like inspiration, work, the book, all of that. So you kind of have an idea going in what you're going to be asked.
Okay, awesome. Awesome,
Uh,
awesome. So I do have a question. So there's like the little blue and red dots that are like circling in our divide. Is that supposed to be there, or is that like I'm buffering or something?
mm, I don't know. So just to be on the safe side, go ahead and pop out and then pop right back in, and I'll pull you back up on the screen and see if it like
Okay,
locks in.
okay.
There's Ashley. I'm not gonna bother Brooke. There we go. Excellent. Did the circles go away?
Yeah, they did.
Excellent.
Okay, cool.
Most of the time, if you ever get on a live later on, if someone calls you, someone voice chats you, or you have like an alarm go off during the live and all of a sudden it disconnects, the best you could do is hop out and hop back in.
No, that just happened again. I'm gonna go out one more time, come back, and I'm gonna turn all my alarms off because I just had another one go off. Hold on one second. I'm unprepared.
You're good.
Hi, Ashley. This is precisely why I start the interviews early because TikTok is only as smart as we allow it to be. Hi, Zalia. How was dinner? Hi, Kat. Thank you for joining. And thank you for all of the likes. There it goes. Dinner's about to be finished. Excellent. Um, I snarfed mine down. Excellent. Heart a bunch. Oh, thank you.
Okay. Hopefully we're good. I was going to do it on my iPad because I'm like, oh, no one's gonna call me, nothing's gonna happen, and I didn't charge it, so I only have 9%.
Me. I have to always do the lives on my charger cable because I will absolutely forget to charge my device up until about
Hmm.
5 minutes before I go live, and then I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
whoops,
I'm plugged in because my phone was only like half juice, but my iPad was like 8%.
zero.
Like even on the charger, like it's going to die. So we're doing the best we
Feel
can.
that.
Hopefully nobody calls me or some nonsense like that.
Well, don't worry. If they do, I can cut it out when I do like a final version for YouTube. I will if for some reason you have to hop out, I take like a little sticky note of times when I'm like, oh, hey, check at this point because something goofy happened. Or, if TikTok is like, hey, cut, and they just kick you out because they've done that to some people before.
Yeah, it totally wouldn't surprise me if I get a phone call at some point. But it looks like text messages aren't bothering it. They're just like popping up and like going away. So,
Going away. As long as you don't touch them or like leave the screen,
mhm.
fingers crossed, knock on wood, we should be fine.
Yeah, it's it's a learning experience for me.
It's all good. Well, then, without further ado, hi everyone. Thank you for joining in the chat. My name is Lizzie Strong. I am your resident pink menace. I am a monster romance author where the monsters are spooky, scary, but the romance is cute and cuddly. And we're adding on to the tagline because usually it's in some form of a workplace. And I am joined here fantastically by S. Frasher. So go ahead, introduce yourself, where people can find your books, where they can find info about you, and any events you've got coming up.
Okay, I don't have a snappy tagline like you do. I love that. I need to come up with one. Um, so I'm S. Frazier. My name is Shelby. I'm not like super precious about my nom de plume being like a secret identity. um,
Batman.
so I'm everywhere at Frazier Writes and Reads. That's like Instagram, my Gmail, my TikTok, like everything. Um, I have a couple events coming up in Ohio, in Southwest Ohio. I don't know where like everybody lives. I see my friend Kai is on. She's going to be at some of these events too. But we have an event in Lebanon on November 12th at this little cute local bookstore called Mulberry Street Books. It's part of like Lebanon's ladies' nights out. Like all the shops open up and they have like sidewalk things. It's really cool. And then me and Emma Steinbrecher, who is another author, we're co-hosting a holiday author fair in Miamisburg in December on the 11th.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And are any of these events listed on like your website or on your Instagram or anything like that?
That would be a really great idea. I will put them on my website tonight.
Yeah,
I'll
after
do
this
that.
interview. Hashtag me when everyone's like, hey, have you updated your calendar yet? No, but that's a great idea.
It's a good idea. It's an idea I should have thought of. And my website, I have a link tree now. I just did that 2 days ago. It's in my bio, so my website is in there.
Excellent. So have you also listed your books on the Linktree little drop down thing yet, or no?
Yes, I have. So my first book is on there. And my second book just released today, and it is also on there. I think it only shows the Kindle version on the drop down, but when you click it, it takes you and you can buy like any format of it.
Excellent. And because it is your release day, happy release day.
Thank
How are
you.
you feeling?
I'm feeling that I need, this is only my second book, my second release. I need to not release them on days I also work
Yeah,
because I've done that both times and I was like so busy. I was like neglectful of my actual job today. um, so yeah, next time it's going to be a weekend release, but I'm feeling really excited. I know a couple people, like I have like 3 fans now. They like bought them right away. So that's exciting. And yeah, I'm eager for people to read it.
excellent.
Ashley's on now.
Ashley, of course, super excited to finish the first one so she can read the second one. And your covers are stunning. I'm looking at both of them on my computer screen. And do you have them custom made for you, or are you the artist?
I'm not the artist. I will have to pull up at some point the concept art that I send to my
Mhm.
artists because they're hilariously bad.
Are they stick
Um,
figures?
There were honestly, yes, barely better than that. And the like background of this cover is inspiration from Bob's Burgers, the episode where the wolf of the wharf or whatever, when they're walking through the woods. I saw it. I'm like, that is it. And I literally
Yes.
scream grabbed it and sent it to my friend. But my artist, her name is Hannah. She goes by Creative by Her on socials. She's one of my best friends. We've known each other for years, and she does such a great job. And she does other custom work as well. If anybody ever needs art, she's great and she's so great to work with. She's like the sweetest human being, but she's amazing.
Excellent. I love that. And I love that you have that connection because everywhere that indie authors can, it's best to have those connections because unlike
Mm-hmm.
trad, nobody does it for us, so we don't just submit something and it gets done and edited
Somebody
by
take
someone who
care of this.
right? Just here's the paper. I'll see you in like 3 weeks, and I'll get
Mm-hmm.
my edits back. Totally fine. I'm good to go. Um, so, as an indie author, what has been your experience publishing? Like, what what did it feel like going through the first one, and how has that changed going through the second one?
Yeah, it's actually changed a lot because when I started writing the first one, it was just for fun. I was quarantined during COVID. My job was shut down for like a little bit of time. So I had all of this new time on my hands. When I was in college, I had started writing and then I kind of went through a traumatic experience and I just like didn't write or really read much for a while. And then I went to therapy and I was locked down. I was like, I have all this time and I have all these ideas. I'm just going to start writing for myself.
Mhm.
And then one of my friends from my book club read it and she was like, no, you should publish this. So I kind of started looking into what that looked like and I found KDP. And then I found a really supportive group of people through like TikTok. And I met some authors. So it was really, I fell into it the first time. It was kind of just like a passion project.
Mhm.
And then I felt like the story couldn't be told in one. So then I started on the second one with the, intent of like publishing. And that process went a lot quicker because it took me about a year to do the first one. And then the second one I wrote in about 5 months. So intention really cut the time down as well because I was like, had a goal.
Right. And
Yeah.
after going through the first one, the second one's like, oh no, I know what I dorked up last time. I'm not gonna do it
Yeah,
this
I'm
time.
still learning that, but I definitely learned to edit a little bit as I went the second time. And the second time, I actually got printed copies of it to do my final edit. So, like, I could get my
Yeah.
eyeballs like on the pages and not just on the computer because I missed so much. Like, I know the copy that like Ashley has like tons of typos in it that I've kind of gone through now and fixed.
Right.
But hopefully it's not as much the second time because I took a little more care with like editing as well. Yeah.
Um, so then, what does your team look like? So is it just you and your cover artist, or do you have anyone else that you work with to get these ready to go?
Yeah, it's really just me, like officially me and my cover artist. I
Mhm.
have a really great group of friends that do help with like reading and bouncing ideas off of, but I don't use like an editor or anything like that yet. I just can't
Um,
justify the cost right now.
I am right there with you. I am hoofing it as much as I can.
Yeah.
But do you have like an ARC team or like a beta team that anyone pre-reads it before it goes live?
Um, so really, I don't have a team, and I think I decided that this series, which I'm planning one more, like it's going to be a
Mhm.
trilogy, will be like fully just like my beta experience with this thing.
Fair.
Because I'm working on two other projects right now that one of them I want to get edited by someone, and the other one I want to create a beta like read team and an arc team because I didn't even know what that was when I wrote the first one. Like I was
Fair.
like I knew nothing. I'm just like learning as I go. My friend Emma taught me what justifying the pages was because my first copy of the first book, it's like uh all edit to the right or whatever, and like the
Sure.
sides are like
Yeah, know that feel.
yeah. So I'm just learning as I go. I think this one's just going to be my baby that I will say from start to finish this trilogy, I just did it myself, and the other stuff I'm gonna like start doing the more traditional route. And I'm
Uh,
gonna write Ashley down as one of my ARC readers. I see you.
Absolutely. Ashley's always down to pre-read, and yeah, I did tell her that that you had bought me the
Uh-huh.
book. I'm very excited to get my fingies on it. So since you've got a third one coming out, and I see like Daughter of Truth, Queen of Death, do we kind of have like a title that we can tease, or are you keeping that locked
Hmm.
down?
No, we can tease it. I picked the titles very shortly after the first one was
Hmm.
published for all of them. So the third one is called King of Redemption.
Ooh, I like it. I
Yeah.
also really like when themes like go across the board. Love that. Chef's kiss. Um, so with this book, go ahead and describe for everyone that's in the chat what Daughter of Truth slash this uh does it have a series name or
Yeah, Veritas and Mori. It's
so
Latin for truth and death. Hmm.
I like that. I really like that. But yeah, go ahead and tell everyone what book one is about and like what the overall story for your series is.
That's so hard. Let me write the whole thing and then not be able to summarize it.
Me.
So like I said, yeah, it's the series is called Veritas and Mori, and that's kind of a nod to the two main characters. So Fia is my female main character; she is truth, and Cole is my male main character, and he is death.
Ooh.
Um, so when I was writing this one, I like I'd been doing a lot of reading that year and was very inspired by like these incredible authors and seeing these themes of like I was just getting into book talk, the tropes that people love.
Mhm.
Um, so I'll preface this as well, like take a step back. I'm a therapist. I'm a clinical mental health therapist. So I have a
Oh,
psychology background, I have a trauma background. So
love
I do
that.
look at some of that stuff through this lens as well. And some of I started seeing some of the toxicity. Like I don't want to ruin because like I'm all about these tropes. Like I love a dominating male character. I love, enemies to lovers. I love it all. I love the darkness of
Mhm.
it. But like my other side of my brain is like, is this damaging for like young readers, like young
Right.
female readers especially? So like book one is to me all of the tropes that we love
Mhm.
as they're often presented to us. And book two is what happens when some of those tropes turn ugly and the reality of what happens when a man is very controlling of you and what happens when you don't
Mhm.
have your own voice. So there's kind of that journey a little bit. But book one is basically following the female main character, Fia's journey of finding herself and finding her power through her very supportive partner Cole, who just sees her as this amazing, gorgeous, like powerful female,
Mhm.
who very willingly brings her into his world as an equal, because his magical power is definitely the most obviously powerful in their world, and that's why his family has been in power for as long as they have. And her family is powerful through the alliances they make because their power
Mhm.
is detecting truth, which has value, but it can't win a war.
Right.
So she's always kind of been this step below. And in her society, women are treated as second class citizens. So she's always been this lesser piece in her world that had no say in who she married, what she did, like all of this kind of stuff. Um, and then she just gets this partner who does nothing but support her and show her how powerful she is. And it's just her journey finding herself. And then book two is her her continuing to find her place in the world and finding the difference between power and tyranny.
Mm.
The tagline of book one is "Power without grace is tyranny." So you kind of see that play out, and there's a lot of classism in book one and two, and her just navigating what kind of ruler she wants to become, one that has grace and power and yields it with like honor, basically.
Okay. I like it. And so, not to give out away any spoilers, but book three
Right.
obviously is coming with your king title, which I'm very excited to see. So what genre would you say this series is in? And it can be hybrid genre, or it can be like a lot of different ones. What would you classify this book as?
I always just say it's fantasy romance because it is set in a fantasy world, but their relationship is the main thing you're looking at in the story, you know?
I like that.
Mhm.
Is that going to be your genre across the board? Or are you like fantasy romance author, or are you author who's writing fantasy romance?
I don't know. Like I said, I fell into this and like
Mhm.
it's this really like honestly, I think I mirror this a little bit of finding myself through my passions in this project. Because I have most of my ideas are fantasy romance. That's what I love. That's what I gravitate towards when I read as well. But I have some ideas that are not. I just wrote a historical fiction novella, and I have a couple contemporary romance ideas. Um, but yeah, I'm mostly fantasy romance, but I will be trying to dip my toe in some other worlds at some point.
I like that. And you brought up a novella, so then obviously not just novels in your future, or are we talking like Patreon short stories, or what are you feeling like dabbling in?
I think I'm gonna stick with novels for the most part. The novella I wrote was actually a gift for my grandfather. I have a lot of writers in my family. Like my uncle's a published author of, he writes theological fiction, like, or
Mhm.
sorry, nonfiction. And then my grandfather's always been a writer, but he's never published anything or finished any stories because he was like blue collar working like 100 hours a week to raise his like five children.
Yup.
And when my first book came out, he was like, I didn't know you like to write. Um, I used to write. And he told me this story that he had came up with and no he never wrote it, he never had time, he doesn't feel like he can do it now. And my uncle, he begged, he's like, I begged your uncle to do it and he wouldn't do it because he doesn't write fiction.
Mhm.
So I wrote it for him. um so I don't even know if I'm going to like officially publish it, but I'm mostly going to stay with novels, maybe a
Okay.
couple novellas. I know that a lot of people love one of my side characters in this series. Dorothy might be getting a novella at some point, but other
I
than
love
that, I
that.
think I'm going to stick to kind of whole books, whole novels.
I like that. What is your usual like word length slash like book size that you're looking for?
Um, I think no less than 80,000 words on my fantasies. My first one is 115. My second one, I think, is 84. Um, I think some of the other stuff, like the contemporaries I might want to do, would be shorter,
Hmm.
but typically I like that. What is that mega novel at that point? That like 100,000 plus?
Yeah.
I
Uh,
like that size.
I think it's called a mega novel, but honestly, with how many fantasy authors I know that their minimum is like 105 and then like
Hmm.
their maximum is 300, I think it's just fantasy novel. That's just
That's
the
that's
size.
fair. Yeah, sometimes I buy these books and I'm like, they're this big.
So
Um, yeah.
Priority of Orange Tree. I want, because I know it's good. Everyone loves that book, but it is 800 pages, and I don't think
Hmm.
I have the fortitude to read 800 pages. It's got to be good. It's a number one bestseller.
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't think I can do it.
Hmm. My husband funny. My only TikTok video that has gotten over 100,000 views was my husband taking me on a date to the bookstore. And
Mm,
we like switch. He's like, you pick me something, I'm gonna go pick you something. He came back with a book that it was like that. It was huge. And I'd heard of it. I'm like, I've heard that's great. I do not think I have the time to dedicate to that right now.
right.
It's crazy.
I'm gonna have to take it chunk by chunk. Uh,
Yeah.
but Becca brought up a funny point, Nano. So, as you're part of the author sphere, are you doing NaNoWriMo?
I am doing Nano, yeah.
Uh, are you working on the third book for Nano, or are you working on something completely separate for Nano?
I'm working on something completely separate. I I can't say this fully because I've only written two of them, but I feel like stories kind of tell me when they're ready. So
Right.
like I wrote book one and then I didn't feel ready for book two. I wrote half of another book and then I said no, book two is ready. So then I started working
Mm,
on it. I don't think book three is ready yet. It's not, there's ideas percolating for sure
mm,
and the general theme is like there. But I am working on a fantasy romance. That originally was a novella idea in this world, but just took on a life of its own. It's just going to be a separate thing now.
feel that deep in my soul. I can plan that. I'm like, oh yeah, this one's gonna be short. It's gonna be sweet. It's gonna be to the point. 95K later, I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, I've done this to
Too
myself.
long.
She long, and
Yeah.
wasn't ready for that. But so, would you consider yourself then a pantser, a planter, or a plotter?
I am plotter all the way through. Like the first time I took a crack at writing a novel, I was in college,
Mm,
um, toying with the idea of doing a creative writing as my minor because my college made us have it's called a thematic sequence, but it's a minor. They make you have it. So I was toying with what mine would be, and I was pantsing it, and it doesn't go anywhere because I don't know where I'm going.
fair.
I can't figure out my trajectory like at all. I can't do like plot twists or like anything because I don't know what the end of the plot is. It doesn't work for me. I think people that can do that are awesome. Like your brains, people that do that, their brains fascinate me. But I start with an outline and it can change. Like I'm not like this is what it is
Rigid.
if I feel but I start with an outline. So my nano project has 24 plot points, and those are typically my chapters. So
Hmm.
like both of these books had 20 plot points, and I typically make those my chapters.
Like it. Let my characters tell me what's going on, when to stop. So
No.
since you're a plotter, how would you describe like your getting ready to make a novel process? Because obviously you said sometimes the story's not ready yet. You got to keep percolating on it. So what does that look like from start to finish?
um so typically for me it's several months of quote ideas, plot ideas, scene ideas that I'm like chaotically writing post-it notes and like notes in my phone.
Right.
And then when I feel like there's a good amount of meat to that nonsense, I sit down and I divide it into questions that I need to answer, plot points, and quotes. And then
Mhm.
I start sifting them into like some kind of order. And then typically I get the plot kind of in order, and then I'll start putting the quotes that I have in the scenes that I've already kind of conceptualized into place in that order as well. And then when I go to write like a chapter, like I typically write chapter one first, all the way to the end. If I come up with like a scene for the
Mhm.
end or something, I'll write that, but I don't like fully do it. And then I typically write the preface or the prologue and the epilogue last. Um, and when I go to write chapter one, I'm going to take all the plot points I have in my little organizer and all the quotes with it and just start forming the story around it.
Like that. Do you use any tech, any apps, or any like outside sources, or is it solely like note cards and sticky notes?
I use like Word documents and like Google Docs and I just recently, I don't want to misquote or attribute this, so I'm going to look it up really quick. I'm writing a anthology piece
Hmm.
for submission, and this is the first time I have used this plan your novel setup. I want to give credit to who wrote it. Where's the name of them? Moontrek, draft your
Hmm.
novel. It looks like this.
Yes.
I used this to do my anthology piece, um, and I found it helpful, I think. But when I was plotting for my nano piece, I went back to my old way. So I think I'm gonna keep trying to trek through with what makes sense to my brain.
Fair, fair. Um, so then, since you brought up, is that anthology piece coming out this year, next year? Is it already out?
No, I don't know a ton about it, which is terrible. It is very cool, and I really hope my piece gets picked for it. My friend Emma told me about it. It's Monroe Wildrose. I don't know if you know who that is. She's a writer also, but she's organizing it. It's a femme fairy tale fantasy retelling book.
Mm-hmm.
They're making like a fairy tale book. So everybody picked a classic fairy tale and retold it through the lens of like feminism and fantasy. So I did a Jack and the Beanstalk retelling, um, where Jack is Jacqueline
Mm-hmm.
and the beanstalk grows down into the earth into a fey realm instead of up into the sky into a giant realm.
Ooh, I
So
like
that
it.
is final submission in December. So I'm sure maybe spring if I had to guess when it's coming out, because
Okay.
December like 2nd I think is when it's due, and they're going to pick 8 to 12 stories, get the final edit done, and then publish it. So
I like that. Alrighty. So if your anthology piece doesn't get picked, are you going to just kind of publish it through KDP, or are you thinking of just holding on to it yourself and fully fleshing it out later?
I don't know. I've talked about both. It's short, it's 20,000 words, so not, in my opinion, like publishing to for purchase length.
Mm-hmm.
So I've thought about either putting it on like Kindle Unlimited or putting it on my website for free, to give people that have never read anything by me like an opportunity to see what I'm about and like if they like it, to want to buy
Right.
my other stuff. But I've also thought about fleshing it out because I think it has like a lot of potential, with the story. And then I joked with one of my friends, I think she's on here, she was on here earlier, Kylie, that we should, if mine doesn't get picked, we should just publish a anthology reject book because I know so many people that have submitted and not gotten picked. I'm like, let's just all make a book.
That's how most like friends anthologies happens, is like other
Hmm.
people seeing other anthologies and they're like, you know, I like the idea, but I don't want to do it with strangers. And then they just
Hmm.
all combine together, like me and our friends. We have a beaver anthology coming out next year for Arbor Day.
Oh, I love for Arbor Day.
Completely unhinged. It started as a joke. It's now a
Hmm.
real thing. We have a cover and an editor. So I can tell you right now, if y'all do pull that, totally within the realm of reasonality,
Hmm.
because I don't know what friend groups don't eventually like, you know what, actually, yeah, we can all pull something together.
Right, let's just do it.
So what would you say is probably your close circle of like author buddies? Who would you turn to in like a time of need, or like I've got a really funny author, maybe I want to share with people?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm in Ohio, and we have a Ohio Book Talk Babes Facebook group that has lots of subgroups, and one of them is Ohio Book Talk Authors. So I'm in that group, and then there's even a subgroup in that is like 6 of us that have a group chat that is absolutely unhinged.
Yep.
um, uh, I feel like I have all of those ladies. And then Kai, then we do like writing days together because we live about 20 minutes away. So she's like kind of the author that we bounce off each other the most right now. Like we're meeting Saturday for a nano write sesh.
We love that.
And then Emma Steinbrecher has kind of been like my publishing like godmother. Like I ask her like logistical, like what the hell am I doing questions.
Fair.
Um, but everybody in my group is super helpful. Chelsea Banning has done the publishing thing. She just put out in like a King Arthur retelling that she's been very helpful. And then Rachel Mays has a dystopian fantasy coming out next month, and she's been very helpful with bouncing ideas off of as well. So that's kind of my people.
Alrighty. And I love that you have like local people.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my friends don't live in Florida, so it's a lot of FaceTime.
Um, Florida, where about are you?
Do you know? Well, obviously Disney World. So Orlando is like here. I'm in
Yeah.
Cocoa, which is here.
So kind of in the middle.
I'm actually 20 minutes from the beach, so I'm more on the
Okay.
eastern side.
Okay. Because I'm going to Books, Gowns, and Crowns next year, which is in Tampa.
Yeah,
I'm a
Tampa's
featured
about
author there.
2 hours from me. Absolutely.
Are you going to
Uh,
go?
I want to go as a reader, mostly
Mm-hmm.
because I would love the excuse of just going to hang out with people. But it is like $400 to do everything that I want to do.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
uh, yeah, so yep, I want to. We're gonna see after tax season if I am
Where you're
going.
at. Yeah,
Right.
it is expensive. I'm excited. I've never been before. I'm an author going,
Hmm,
which I'm very nervous about, and have so much imposter syndrome. But
fair.
I think it'll be a very cool event. So I would, if you come, you have to tell me.
Oh yeah. Everyone, if I do make it, everyone's gonna hear me screaming. So you'll hear me.
Okay.
Florida
Awesome.
screaming about it. Um, so obviously you're going to an event. Are there any other like in-person events you're doing next year that people can look forward to seeing you?
Not next year. That's the only one I'm aware of. Like again, I'm so new to this like community in general.
Mm,
But I am doing, like I said, those two local events to this area in November and December, and then the only like big event I'm doing next year is Books, Gowns, and Crowns, which is in May. And I think other than that, I might just hunker down and write a lot next year.
fair. So speaking of hunkering down and writing, what does outside of plotting, what does your writing process look like, especially from like the outside view?
It looks like me sitting on my couch with noise canceling headphones, playing the sounds of rain, and like
Okay,
just disassociating for like 2 hours.
fair. So why rain?
I it's I can't do silence because
Right.
silence is way too distracting to me, as weird as that is. Like I can't do it. Music is too engaging. Like I'll start singing and I'm not like focusing. So like the sounds of like a campfire or the ocean or rain, it's like ambient and it's enough that I'm not bored with the silence, but not
Fair.
too much that I'm getting distracted with like music or television or something.
Uh, Also, a fun question that I like to ask all my authors is, what is something you have to have in order to get in like the mojo, the good spot? Like whether it's a drink, a snack, a pet buddy. What are we looking at?
Genuinely, I think I have to have the rain sounds.
Right.
Everything else is so ever changing. It's just me and my laptop, and that's kind of it. I mean, I typically have water nearby, but other than that, I can't snack because I'm like weird about getting things on my computer keys, like crumbs or grease, so I don't
Fair.
snack. Um, but actually, yeah, my computer's been my little buddy. I'm sad because I think she's reaching her old age. I'm getting a new one at the end of this month, and I'm kind of grieving her, as weird as that is.
It's fair. Mine has so mine's a big tower because it used to be a gaming computer, and then my husband was like, "Hey, I'm building a new one. Here you go. Here, have this big giant thing." Um,
Yeah.
it came with googly eyes on it, so it's kind of grown its own personality.
It's
And
anthropomorphic for you. What's
yes,
its name?
when it
What's its name?
it's actually Frank,
Okay.
because he's got like a Frank face to him. And
Okay.
I swear, when Frank goes, I might cry. I really might, because we've gotten to know each other the last couple of
Hmm.
years.
Hmm. No,
But
yeah, I
he's
literally feel guilty. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry you're old.
Frank,
I've
I'm
had
so
this
sorry.
computer since my freshman year of undergrad. Like
Mhm.
she's 10 years old. She's been through it with me.
And through
Yeah.
undergrad, uh,
She's
oh,
seen me cry. She's seen me FaceTime garbage boys. I should have never been FaceTiming.
oh, I know that too.
She's seen every rendition of everything I've ever written. Um, she saw me cheat on some of my college exams. You know, she's been there with me through it all.
But speaking of your seeing you through everything, but especially like your college, and you said you are a therapist. So, does anything from your IRL job or your degree kind of bleed into your writing, or are they separate?
I think it does bleed. I am very firm believer that we're just like an amalgamation of all of our experiences. So like I don't think I could put my therapy brain over on a shelf and be like, you're not welcome to this writing process at all.
Mhm.
And I read my reviews. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I read my book reviews and I've had so many people say her knowledge or her expression of emotional like experiences is so good. And I'm like, I know that's
This is the
my
therapist brain
therapy
talking.
side. Yeah. And book two, there's a lot of PTSD experiences in book two that, you know, I hope I did justice to. And some of my own experiences I drew from that, but I do think it plays a role for sure. And I had a very interesting experience with a client earlier in the year that went. Have you seen the patient on Hulu?
I If I have, it's vague.
Okay. Uh, it's basically where a client has a lot of kind of like dark predilections and becomes obsessed with their therapist and kidnaps them.
Ooh,
Yeah, I can't watch it because of some of the experiences I've had, and one of them was very
fair.
interesting that I think might play a role in one of my contemporary romances. That the main characters struggle to overcome is her trauma after she's been stalked. So I think some at some point when I'm ready, there will be some more real life experiences in my work. But right now we're pretty fantasy. Um, I heard recently that people read or write as a window or as a mirror.
Hmm.
And when you're a window, you want to see something else. When you're a mirror, you want to see yourself. I'm very much a window reader and a window writer.
Like that.
Yeah.
Um, so since you do play a lot with that emotional intelligence and healthy mental stability, would you say that your characters, because a lot of authors say, why go to therapy when I can write a book? Would you say your books are healing for you or healing for your readers?
um, I don't want to speak for my readers. I'll say they're healing for me. And I think a lot of women, like that's obviously the lens I view the world through, can, and men maybe can too, and non-binary people, but I can only speak from my experience, is that
Right.
women often feel placed in a box, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for Thea, it's finding her way out of that is very therapeutic for me um, to write about. And I hope people can see it in the writing as well and maybe relate to it in some way. But yeah, I don't want to speak for the readers.
That's fair. Um, would you say then, when you, as an author, kind of bring stuff to the table, because each of us bring something a little different, and we can share some things as well. What would you say? not necessarily that is better than anyone else or that no one else has, but what do you bring to the table as an author?
That's so hard. I had this conversation with my uncle recently because, again, he writes theological nonfiction books that are like meant to make an impact in the world in like a major like way,
Right.
like a theological spiritual way. Um, I don't know. I hope I bring like a reader's perspective into it because I did start out as like a 12-year-old writing fan fiction and like this is what I
Sure.
want out of a story. So I think I bring that and I think too like we've been talking about the emotional intelligence piece because I do think that gets overlooked well. And honestly, the only other author that I've read, I'm sure there's tons, but that I have read in the fantasy realm that did a really good job with writing trauma is Sarah J. Maas. Um, how she writes PTSD in A Court of Mist and Fury, I think was very well done. I have not seen another fantasy author, and again, they maybe exist. I'm sure they exist, but write it that well. Yeah, so I think I bring that to the table, hopefully.
Alrighty. Um, and since you brought up book rec, something else I like to ask is if someone was going to look at your bookshelf right now, what would be some top recs for you that you would give to somebody?
That's so hard. I mean, I think there's the obvious ones that we see all over Book Talk that like I also loved, like the Akatar series. I see somebody asked who Sarah Jane is. Sarah J. Mass. I might have like done that. I think everybody loves her books. One of the I'll say this, one of the less um known authors that I've really enjoyed in the last year is Jamie. I'm going to butcher her last name, Shalonger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you know who I'm talking about? She did the Fae King
Yep.
series. I really loved her books. I would recommend them. I never see them talked about. I'm gonna look it up so I can do the right. Jamie, don't mind me. I really, really enjoyed those. A Fae King's Dream by Jamie
Mhm.
Schlosser. Those are so good. I never see anybody talk about them. So if you love fantasy romance, you have to read them. How they are all free on Kindle Unlimited feels like unjust because I would have paid so much money to read them. Um, I also like An Ember in the Ashes. That's what really got me into loving fantasy again. Um, by Sabaa Tahir. And then Daughter of the Pirate King is also a top one for me.
Solid.
Yeah, though I don't see people talking about these books a lot. I just see a lot of JLA and Sarah, which they obviously deserve the credit. They're amazing books, but there's a lot of other good ones too. And then on my shelf right now, I'm about to read Forbidden Fate by Caven Heerning.
Mhm.
I have that on my shelf right now. I have a little TBR right here, but nothing else is like up there yet.
Right. Fair. So would you say you're a very avid reader, or would you say you're kind of like a really lax reader? Because a lot of writers like span the whole spectrum.
For me, it depends where I am at my in my writing process. So prior to starting writing again, I was ripping through books like
Fair.
avidly, like all the time. And then I started writing again, and it reading takes a little bit of a back seat,
Mhm.
unfortunately. When I'm in the early stages of writing a book, like I will still read a good amount. When I'm editing, I'm not reading anything else but my work. And it gets really old.
That's fair. Um, do you only read like fantasy romance, or are you like a genre hopper reader?
So I go through phases with that as well. I think my constants have been fantasy romance. Um, but lately contemporary romances have taken up a big bulk of time. And if we're gonna get so specific, um, NHL romances and aliens
Yeah,
and mafia.
yeah, solid. There's something about hockey that just makes it like it's not football. And it's not soccer. I don't know what it is about hockey, but hockey just it has a different taste to it.
No, it does. I'm dead. My sister-in-law, my best friend, is she just on? She said we love a hockey trope. We do,
Right.
and we are stepping into this fantasy a little more. We're going to a hockey game soon. She's requested hockey paraphernalia for her for Christmas. It's taking on a life of its own.
Fair. And there's some research that you can do in that with how the body works while people are playing hockey. Visual
hmm
research. Totally.
Yeah, my husband takes personal offense to it
Does he not like
because
hockey
he
or?
does like MMA.
Hmm,
No, he's like an athlete. He does MMA. He does jujitsu. He's like in that fighting realm, which like has its place in the hotness world. But there's no books about it. I've not seen any. We like the hockey players. I went to a college that was really big on hockey, so I don't know if that has played a role in the fantasy. Uh, but yeah, I like those.
fair. So you picked hockey. Why aliens?
I don't know. I think we all fell into the ice planet barbarian hole a couple
Yep.
years ago. That was my first introduction. Um, I don't know. I think there's something about two worlds colliding that I like.
Mhm.
That take it out of a real world context because obviously there's contemporary romances that have like, oh, they're from this country or this like there's worlds colliding, but I like the fantasy-ish aspect of it. um yeah, I mean you should know the answer, but I think two worlds colliding, I think it is the ultimate romance version of window reading because like
Mhm.
you're never gonna be with somebody like that. um
Fair.
and there's something about which you'll see in my books. I love a killer with cinnamon roll heart for only the person they care about, and I think you see that in monster and alien romances so much.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's how
Especially
Cole is.
when,
That's my main character. He is the ultimate. He's gonna murder all of you, but that's his baby girl.
right. Don't touch her or you lose the hand. The next
hmm
time you lay a hand on me is the last time you have hands. We love that.
hmm
And then, of course, you picked Mafia. Do you read, because a lot of them do kind of are at least the trend is leaning in that direction. Do you read any like why choose or you solely like one pairing?
I typically do one pairing. I've actually only read one Why Choose. I mean, I've read Reverse Harem, and I do think they're distinctly different, even though we're kind of trending towards the Why Choose for cultural appropriation reasons, like also. But I
Mhm.
do think they're different in the style,
Mhm.
also, like a little bit. But the only Why Choose I wrote was like a bully romance, also, which I do not
Mhm.
like
Fair.
personally. So it kind of turned me off to it. I'm sure I'll encounter it again. I'm reading the third book in the Never King series
Right.
right now, but that does not feel like why choosy to me. It feels more
Mhm.
like reverse, more. But
Okay. So kind of speaking of tropes, is there any tropes you don't like to read? Not that, you're dissing anyone's yum or anything, but
right.
um, what is something that if you were like, you're like, oh, that's cool, not for me, but that's cool. What are some tropes that either you don't like to read or you don't like to write?
Okay. Yeah, not to yuck anybody's yum. Like
Right.
everybody do their thing. I don't like friends to lovers.
Fair.
Because in my mind, I'm like, it's always the friend gets jealous because they found somebody else. I'm like, you could have had them the whole time, and now you're
Right.
dismantling their life because you've decided you like them, and it feels possessive and like weird to me. I don't like that. I don't like a pregnancy trope if it's in the first two-thirds of the book.
Fair.
At the end, don't really care. If it's like the first third, I'm like, not for me. Um, those are the two kind of big ones that I'm like,
So then, is there a genre, specific or vague genre that you won't write in?
I mean, I wouldn't write either of those just because I don't enjoy them. Um, I don't. A lot of what I have to tell my stories, it's like
Mhm.
similar genre or similar tropes. So I won't say I would never do it, but I typically stick to like rivals to lovers, enemies to lovers. Like this book is perceived enemy to lover. It's not like
Mhm.
hard hitting with it. I like sunshine, grumpy. Those are kind of the ones I stick to. I wouldn't say never, other than I wouldn't do a first, third pregnancy trope, and I would not do, I don't think, friends to lovers.
Okay. Unless the characters decides that's
Unless
okay.
the character goes rogue, but I try to keep a tight leash on my characters.
Fair. Absolutely fair point. We do in this house, we stand Grumpy Sunshine. It is my bread
Hmm.
and butter.
Hmm.
Um, so if you were going to start, like, say you start a new book absolutely right now, um, what's the genre? What's at least one trope you would use? And do you have like a theme song you would play with it?
But not my nano piece, something totally
Yeah,
new.
something new, just so like people have an idea of what kind of things you're looking to do in the future. Unless you want to do something completely off the walls, like if you had all the spoons, you want to do something completely bonkers, what would it be?
I think if I had to pick something that I've never written before,
Mhm.
I would do a contemporary romance. I would do a relationship of convenience.
Ooh, we like it.
And I feel like I've been listening to Taylor Swift's new album so much. I feel
Fair.
like Midnight Rain is like a good theme song for that.
We like it. Um, so obviously you listen to ambient music or ambient sounds when you're
Hmm.
writing. Um, while you're editing, though, do you get any like? How do you get the juices flowing for your editing, or do you also listen to rain?
I usually listen to Rain. I do. I can't be
Fair.
distracted. Like I never been diagnosed, but think I have a little bit of a neurodivergent brain. It can't have too many options going at one
Fair.
time. I need to really rein it in to be productive. Um, but yeah, before I start my editing process, I typically like to read something else, be inspired, and also clear my brain like a little bit, and then I get to work.
Excellent. Um, so then, obviously, we write, we edit. What do you do to get ready to publish?
Like emotionally or
Fair. Yeah, no, we
logistically.
can absolutely talk about emotionally. What do you do?
Emotionally, I tell myself my writing is for me, and if no one buys it, that's okay.
Fair.
Logistically, I'm gonna be honest, I think I need to change what I've done with these two for the next process because, like, as you can see, the copy I have, it's not even like, oh, it's the proof copy
Right.
because I do everything last minute. So my final draft of this was not submitted to KDP until yesterday morning.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Story of
So,
my
but
life.
that's what I did with the first one too, and I don't enjoy this feeling.
Yeah.
So I'm going to nail myself down next time to have it in at least a week before and not just keep going back and changing little things. Because, like, the last edit I did was like changing a couple words because one of my friends that read it said that the sentence didn't make sense. And I was like, okay, I'm going to change that on my Kindle version, my paperback, my hard copy. It's going in. So I need to just let it be at a certain point and not be changing it the
Mhm.
day before. So I think my publishing process needs to change a little bit.
Alrighty. Um, so do you only publish through KDP or do you do like Ingram Spark, Barnes Noble? Uh, which bricks are you using?
Yeah. So I only did KDP at first. Um, I finally put book one on Barnes and Noble Press
Hmm.
last week. And I'm going to go to the store soon and like ask the distributor at my local Barnes and Noble if they will shelve some for me. So that's exciting. I've not used Ingram Sparks. Um, and honestly, the main deterrent was like I didn't want to pay for it. And
Fair.
I
Absolutely
was like,
fair.
yeah, I was like, let me see, like if my book does good enough, I'll absolutely put it there. But right now, it seems like Ingram kind of does some of the legwork for you, of getting it like on KDP and on
Mhm.
Barnes and Noble Press. I'm like, I can do those myself, and then it's for like mass distribution, which I'm like, Walmart doesn't want to buy a million copies of my book right now. I don't need to put it on Ingram Sparks.
Absolutely fair. And they do charge you every time you edit the manuscript. So every time you re-upload or change it, they charge you another $50. So
Oh,
uh, from
that would be a
personal
problem for
experience,
me.
yeah, from personal experience, don't touch Ingram until you have that final copy in hand
Hmm.
and submit that one. Because they charge you for putting up the title, and then they charge you for every time you change the manuscript or update it.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so if you go Ingram and you like say for your next series you want to go full wide, absolutely. Um, be like do all of your edits and changes and all that through KDP and get that all set up and ready. And then once that's finalized and you like the way it looks, then take it to to Ingram because they though they help distribute wide and they are a indie author's backbone essentially, they will charge you an arm and a leg, and absolutely look out for when they do a free title upload. Like they did it 1 month
Hmm.
this year, the entire 30 days. If you uploaded or made a title, they didn't charge you the $50 to make that book title or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so absolutely. In my suggestion would be wait for that month when they come back with that, and then put all of your books up at once so you don't have to get charged for
They
them.
had one a couple, like last week, I think. It was
Yeah.
code festive. Yeah, I didn't do it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm open to it. Absolutely. I'm just like wading my way through this journey.
Right. And of course, on NaNoWriMo, their website, they have a lot of offer codes, including one for one free title on Ingram Sparks. So
Okay.
also look at that one. That one is that one works up until March of next year.
Oh, okay. No, that's helpful. Yeah, I did Nano last year. Like I learned that
Mhm.
it was a thing, but I didn't do it through the website or with anybody. I was just like, no, I'm gonna have this goal and I'm gonna write. Which I did up until November 24th, and I got COVID, and then I slept for 20 hours a day for like a week,
Yeah.
and I did not finish Nano. So I'm hoping this year I finish strong and
Right.
get my
Fingers
goal
crossed. Knock on
done.
wood.
Yeah.
Story of my life. And since you're doing Nano this year, what are some other goals that you have as an author, either like long term or short term? Short term. Sorry.
I don't know. I've been having this conversation with myself a lot of like where I want this journey to take me because obviously it's not my full-time job.
Mhm.
I would think that would be gorgeous if it could be my full-time job. So yeah, I think long term, I would love to be able to do my career part-time and make money writing long term. I think that would be great. Short term, I think just keep it as my passion and working through the ideas I have and staying true to what I want it to be and not like pandering at all is what I want to do.
I like that.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously, long term is which I think most authors is, which is just having the writing pay for itself,
Yeah.
um, have it be the dream job. Um, so say like in 5 years you feel fully established. What does that look like to you?
I don't know. um I mean, I think if you would ask me that 3 years ago, it would have been having a book published through a traditional publishing house.
Mm,
But that's changed a lot in the last couple years, so I don't even know that I would say that anymore. Um, so I don't know, it's evolving with me. But I think, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just having a good amount of people loving my work and just continuing to have ideas, I think is my thing, is like I want to keep my creative self alive and happy because I think it enriches my life so much.
Like that. Um, so what did you query, go for an agent at all, and then decided to go indie, or did you just go indie?
I just went self-published like immediately. I think some of it is like I said, that imposter syndrome of when I was doing it the first time. I'm like, oh, this was just for fun. Like I don't know. I'm just gonna publish it
Right,
myself.
just for me, just put it out.
Yeah. So I didn't do any of that. I have a friend who's doing that right now, and it just seems so grueling. And I think too, are you traditionally published at all?
I am not.
No. I think too, it takes away your child of creation and
Mm-hmm.
they get to make it what they want to make it. And I think we've seen it get really ugly. Like some of the drama that's been on book talk in recent months has been around the final products of traditionally published authors, that the author is getting so much hate. And I'm like, no, we're not realizing this is an entity that's so much bigger than them. And
Mm.
you know, I'm interested. I think that's still like everybody would want to be like a New York Times best-selling writer,
Right.
but I don't need that to be happy with what I'm creating, you know.
And the fantastic thing is, especially in the last couple years, when it comes to like New York Times bestselling author and the Washington Post New York Times or Washington Post bestselling authors, those have switched from being trad only to sales only. So to be New York Times, you just have to sell 5,000 copies in a week. So
Okay.
you can. I have seen some indie authors do it.
Yeah.
Tiffany Roberts, for instance, the
Mhm.
Taken by the Alien Next Door, the Ensnared series.
Mhm.
She has a bunch of books.
Mhm.
She is a New York Times bestselling author. It took her some time to get there because she doesn't have the backing of a trad publisher, but
Right.
it is accomplishable by indie authors, and I think it's
Mhm.
a fantastic thing that can happen. Um, so if not money, not awards, and I'll give my example first.
Mhm.
What is something that like you as an author really want? Like for me, I want someone to dress up in a cosplay of one of my characters and do
Okay.
a skit
Yeah.
on TikTok. Like that, no awards, no money, none of that matters. I want a cosplayer. Like, that's
Yeah.
what I
That's
want as
like,
an author.
Mom, I made it. Look.
Right. So it's cosplaying my character. Like that would be the bar. That's the bar that I set. I don't care if I hit New York Times, if I make $1 million. I will save the video if someone's like, "Hey, I'm cosplaying a Lizzie Strong character." I'm crying and I've saved
I'm
the video.
playing it on like I'm gonna set up a TV at my gravesite and it's going to be playing for forever.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
Okay, so what I want out of myself, I want to finish a trilogy. I want
Right.
that to be like an achievement that I've made myself. I would love, like, obviously, I'd love if somebody did that for me as well, made a video, but I think too, if somebody did like a fan fiction
Yes.
based off of it, and I want it to be the most unhinged fan fiction with the craziest pairing of characters,
Yeah,
um, that would just make my whole life.
absolutely.
If
Uh,
anybody does that, I will publish it in the back of one of my other books. Like,
Absolutely. It's going in. Um,
yeah.
like in the books about this author, fan fiction for the author or something like the full. I will rave about it. I absolutely will fall over and faint if I ever find fan fiction of any of my books because there's
Yeah.
plenty of side characters you can pick. Go
Hmm.
go bonkers. I
Yeah.
will cherish it for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I think like to get like sentimental with it, one thing that I love about a book series or about any art in general is that it can take on a life of its own
Mm,
and it can mean so much more to people than the creator ever thought possible. And like I would love to create something like that someday. that
Right.
people like, even if just one person that they connect with so strongly with it that it like enriches their life. I would love that.
I like that. And just to know that it touched someone, and also identities as well. If you didn't know, most of my characters are either bi or pan,
Mm-hmm.
and I would love to find out that like mine helps somebody either like find comfort in their identity or feel
Mm-hmm.
seen. So that's something I would cry over.
No, absolutely. I think since I kind of take that mental health lens in mind, like I would love if somebody identified with that and said like,
Mm,
no, this made so much sense to me. Um, and having that mental health struggle be looked at as an asset instead of like a deterrent for characters. Like I think people need
right.
to see that more. So yeah, I agree. I would love if that spoke to somebody.
Right. Just to have like to know it touched them to a point that it either healed or helped identify or something
Mm-hmm.
within them, as books have done for me in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would like to talk about now is since we've talked about you and
Mm-hmm.
like your dreams and your everything, let's talk about Daughter of Truth, and then obviously we're going to talk mostly about your newest release, which is Queen of Death.
Mm-hmm.
So a quick wrap up, Daughter of Truth. If you wanted to like read your synopsis or the back of the book, so everyone knows what they're getting into, what is what is Daughter of Truth?
Okay, I'll read the back of the book and then we can have expounding if you want. I will say another thing, writing the back of the book harder than writing the book
Yeah, no,
for
hands
me.
down.
Um, okay, so tagline for the first book is "Power without grace is tyranny," and it introduces the two characters. So Cole Arias of Kativo, powerful and mercurial; Althea Toriana of Pache, mutable and naive. In a world where you either have power or you don't, sometimes even those with the most power can't control everything. Thea has spent her whole life under the control of others, dreaming of being seen and heard. Cole has spent his life with far too much power, but utterly alone and waiting for her. An advantageous arranged marriage will bring them together, while forces stronger than their desire for one another will try to pull them apart. Cole's family, the Mories, have used their mythical powers of control for generations, ruling over the empire with an iron fist. In stark comparison, Thea's family has used their gift of Veritas to support their people and thrive in their land. Their undeniable differences in upbringing will provide Thea and Cole with many obstacles to overcome before they can make it down the aisle. Concurrently, while on a journey of self discovery, Thea uncovers dark truths about both the Empire and Cole that might end them before they get started. Will the world succeed in pulling them apart, or will they together be able to save the Empire from corruption and ruin?
I love it. So what is the world that Daughter of Truth is set in, and where did you get the inspo for this world setting you've created?
Um, I I got it from a dream. Just
Fair.
sounds like um I think Stephanie Meyer always said that about Twilight. She's like, I woke up and it was in my dream. So I got some ideas from the dream. I take a lot of my inspiration from language.
Mm,
I love words. Like I love complex words. I love Latin and Greek and like the meaning of these really cool words. Like in Greek, there's like seven different words for love and they mean different things. So I take a lot of inspiration from language. So that's where the different powers come from, is uh, a lot of Latin that inspired me. But the world is set, it doesn't have a name. The whole world does
fair.
not yet have a name. But the main world, they just call it the continent, and it is ruled mostly by the Mori family. So they call it the Mori realm, the capital city being Kativo.
I like that.
Yeah.
So since you like language and words, is there a hidden meaning behind their names?
There's hidden meaning behind everything in this first book.
Fair.
Everything. So Kativo, I'm gonna mess this up. I'd have to pull my original notes up to remember the exact Latin for it because this has been almost 2 years ago. But cativo means something like destruction or death. Pace means peace, so that's where Thea is from. It means peace. Um, Even like coal means like darkness. I think Arius means cannot be killed. Althea means, I think, innocent, and Toriana means powerful. So like everything has like meaning to me. And obviously like Veritas is truth, Mori is death, and it's all secret and like hidden and like everything has meaning in this first book.
I like that. So obviously, in your description, it's a marriage. So is this an arranged marriage, or is this he sees her and falls in love and like proposes?
Yeah, so I don't feel like this is super giving anything away because it's in the first chapter. It's an arranged marriage that was arranged at her birth. So he's like
Mm,
a little bit old, like a year older than her or something like that. I feel like I should know that. I made it up, but it's arranged at her
no.
birth for her parents as an
Mm,
alliance for power and
mm,
for his parents as a way to pull more power into their realm because her parents had a port city on their in their realm that they wanted
mm.
to be part of the Mori Empire, the realm there. So it is an arranged marriage, and his power of Mori, like it's Latin for death, but it basically means control over essence. So
Mm,
he can make, and his father can make anybody do anything. His mother's power was more of like persuasion.
mm.
So while the whole time his father was raising him to be like a hard ass basically and to take no shit from anybody and
Right.
to like rule with an iron fist of like we are the most important people here, our word is final. His mom was swaying him to believe in love and to have this soft spot for Thea. So he grew up his whole life being very like separate from the world because he was better than them. So he had
Right.
no friends, like his siblings were all married off for power, like they did not have any like support. So he just dreamed of her finally being able to be a part of his world. And like
Um,
Ashley said, that she's his equal. His mom also like taught him that no one is your equal except for her.
Fair. I mean, burn the world except for her. Burn the world
Hmm.
for her, right? We love
Hmm.
it. So, for anyone who hasn't read it, what do they look like?
So I have some gorgeous character art that has been done for me by Aisha. I have her tagged on Instagram. Um, but I love a dark haired male love interest. So Cole has dark hair, blue eyes, straw, strong jaw, like
Y'all.
um, and then Thea is just the epitome of softness. So she's very soft, her features are softer, more of like an ingenue essence or an ethereal essence, is how I imagine her.
And what does the magic look like? Because I have a feeling it's not like wands and bippity boop, and then,
Hmm.
a spell gets cast. So, in your brain or on paper, what does the magic look like in your book?
Um, so the magic is like a birthright and
Mm,
it is passed down from one of your parents. So you
mm,
have one of the magic in my world is called a control. And it basically is you have control over something. So Thea has control over truth. And I won't explain fully what that is because some of that comes later. But at first you see is she can sense truth in any situation. So she has kind of the control over truth and Cole has control over life and essence and what you do. And then there's various other like control of weather, control of animals and nature and uh it's very specific. Like you can't branch out of what you have been given by birthright, but you can make it stronger with effort.
okay. So what kind of balance control imbalances did you do to kind of keep everyone equal, or is it very obvious that you wanted Cole to be the strongest and there's a
Mhm.
reason behind it? Like, how's that working in your world?
Um, so Vixen asked a question that I won't answer. That can be that will is answered in the book. I don't
Mhm.
want to like spoil it because it's kind of like a turning point and part of her character development. But yeah, the Mori power of free will, of essence, is the most powerful, obviously, like when you're looking at it. And that's why they have such a big realm of power and so many subjects beneath them, and nobody has been able to topple their empire.
Hmm.
But you see through this story um, that power is not always obvious, and power is respected when it comes with grace and honesty and integrity, and that the support of people is more powerful than your birthright,
Hmm.
if that answers your question.
Yeah. No, actually, I will keep this completely spoiler free.
Yeah, no spoilers.
Just just keeping it mostly intriguing and plot pointy. Um, so, very beginning of the book, how do your readers enter your world? What does the opening scene look like?
So the opening scene is actually a pull that has spoilers taken out of it from, I believe, chapter 14.
Hmm.
So you jump right into action and despair, kind of.
Love
And you
that.
see right away Cole's main goal is keeping Thea safe, and he is not going to mess around, and he's like doing that. And then it cuts to chapter one being more about the history of the world and the history of the dynamic. But I kind of did that to hope that people can get through the kind of boring world building and like building that they're like, this is coming. Like, I know this is coming. I got to get through this to get back to that. So you kind of
Love
jump
that.
right in, but it's not too deep. It's just a couple pages of action, and then you're kind of thrust into like the monotony for a little bit.
Okay. Um, so does the story then start before the arranged marriage?
So it's third person point of view.
Hmm.
In chapter one, in my opinion, kind of reads like a history book. Like
Hmm.
it's like, oh, this is how the arranged marriage came to be. This is the world. This is the power. These are the two families. Like, okay, now let's get onto the story. And it jumps in chapter two, the day of Thea's birthday, which is her last birthday before she's to be wed. And she's
Hmm.
going to be leaving her realm to travel to the capital city um, to be wed.
I like that. So since we kind of start with Thea, what is her personality like?
Uh, um, it changes a lot through the two books, but she starts out spoiled and very much in a bubble, naive, not really knowing what the real world is like, and having these expectations that may or may not be realistic. She's not without empathy, though. She's spoiled, but she has some empathy and sees that there's some things about the world that are not fair,
Hmm.
and that she does not think she's above other people, but she's naive to the workings of politics and her place in the world and all that kind of stuff.
So then on the flip side, what is Cole's personality like when we meet him?
When we meet him, um, playful and just like sinfully flirtatious and confident, um, seductive.
We love
But
that.
yeah, that, and then with her, definitely softer and more poetic and just love struck and cinnamon rolly. But to the world, he is very, very much a hard ass and very much no nonsense and
We
a
love that.
iron fist, like very much I'm not going to mess around with this stuff.
So what ages are they? Since he's only like 1 to 2 years older than
Hmm.
Thea, what age range? And if they're like not fully human, like elf, what's a vague approximation of their age?
They're in their like mid-20s. And I haven't really defined identity in this world.
Hmm.
We're going to step into that in book three, a little bit more of the mythology that's at play in this world, and are there other species like that will happen in book three. Happens like a little bit in book two, but for all intents and purposes, they're basically
Human.
human-esque.
Okay.
So the book starts her 23rd birthday
Hmm.
and goes from there.
Okay. Um, what would you say is like the timeline of book one? You don't have to say like what happens in it, but like we obviously start on her birthday and we
Hmm.
end 2 years later, earlier.
Earlier, I think it kind of her birthday's early fall, and I'm
Hmm.
kind of going by typical seasons as well. The book ends around the end of fall, and book two starts up like 3 weeks after book one ends. So book one and two span like maybe 6 months.
Fair. We like some
Yeah.
action-packed, quick closeness.
Yeah, there
Uh,
will be a time jump for book
mhm.
three, but just barely. It'll be like maybe a 6 month time jump, maybe 8 months, but not a whole year because I'm playing into the seasons a little bit. But
And
um
Kat did bring up a good point. Do you have any like holiday celebrations here? Did you play with
mhm.
any we already have?
um yes, so there are holiday celebrations. There's like a fall in book one. There's like a fall festival, a fall like solstice type celebration, like a harvest celebration. And book two, there's talk of the like winter holidays, but you don't see them.
Gotcha. Um, so obviously, since book one and book two, within 6 months, um, would you say their relationship has gotten better over the two books, or would you say like book three is coming in clutch because people are really worried?
um, I'll say this: the love that they have for one another develops very quick in book one and stays pretty stagnant in book two. They're like still obsessed with each other, but
Hmm.
there's outside elements that play into a relationship. It's more than just the love you have for somebody. It's how society is working and uh, for them being like royal, the politics of it all. So there
Hmm.
are some things, and I think people end book one intrigued in a good way,
Hmm.
and I think people are going to end book two being really pissed off at me.
We love it. We live off the tears. We love that.
Well, and I feel bad because book three is not even in the works yet. I'm like, if you're pissed, it's going to be a
Oh,
second.
while.
I really
Love
want book
you.
three out next late summer,
Hmm.
which is a fast turnaround, but that's a little bit from now.
Right. It seems, oh, it's not that long in like an author standpoint, but to a
Hmm.
reader that's like 6 years.
Yeah. I hate that for them, but we can only do what we can do.
Fair. Fair. Um so book one, what is like the general arc idea? Obviously, there's this marriage. By the end of book one, do we see the wedding, or uh what's kind of the overarching without obviously giving away the ending?
Yes, you do see the wedding. Um, yeah, you see the wedding. I don't know what else to say without
Oh, that's
spoilers.
fine. Yes, there's a wedding. We like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, so then would you say the story is mostly about them trying to navigate this political world that's around them instead of like, let's get hyped for the wedding?
Yes, it's navigating the political world and mostly Thea navigating how she feels like she fits into it, and
Hmm.
Cole navigating, is she going to be safe here?
Fair.
with
Um,
the amount of enemies his family has amassed in their centuries of ruling.
all right, feeling the stress.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so then, what are some key players that everyone gets introduced really early on? Like, what are your main side characters? Or who, I guess, would be the better question.
Who very early on you're introduced to Dorothy, which if honestly is my favorite character. Like if I on it, my favorite side character without even an argument. She is I don't know if you're familiar with comedy. I love stand-up comedy and like comedies,
Yeah.
and they have this thing where it's called, I think, like the straight man, that like the guy that's like no nonsense and like um it is the audience basically. Like they're straight to the point. They're not doing these goofy little side stories. Like they're the voice of reason. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's Dorothy.
We love that.
Um, yeah, she is what I want the audience, their voice to be, of seeing everything with an outside perspective. So you meet her pretty early on, and then she has a love interest in book two, who I won't spoil, because you do meet them in book one. And then obviously the parents, Thea's parents are very much that fantasy trope of parents are for character development. Like you can kill them off, you can do whatever. They're not main characters in the first one. Her
Mhm.
mother plays a bigger role in the second one. And then the king in book one is another big character. He is like the epitome of the worst.
Fair.
He's
Absolutely.
evil. He's evil. He has no empathy for anyone. Um, Never been kind. You see that in a couple flashback scenes through the books. Those are the main characters that you kind of are familiar with in book one.
So other than Dorothy, are there any side characters that you kind of slipped in there just for funsies or for laughs or as like an Easter egg?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
I did slip some in for like my own personal vendettas of like people that get absolutely rocked that have like maybe a name similar to somebody that I dislike.
Yeah.
There's some righteous
Absolutely
vengeance
done
in
that.
my book. Maybe no Easter eggs. There, I will say this: the names that don't have like a poetic meaning have meaning to me. So there are characters that are a nod to like my grandmother who passed when I was writing this book. One of the matriarchal characters who's a caregiver at the palace is named after my grandmother. So there's some things like that, but not anything that like readers would maybe pick up on.
Like it. Um, so then moving to book two, I literally get wrecked. I'm a pleasant person. Absolutely. I if someone gets like punched or taken out in my book, usually their name is either like the most generic name I can find, or they are absolutely somebody that was like, "Oh, I dislike you. Your name goes in my book, and you are the villain, and you get punched in chapter
And
7."
you
Like,
are dead now.
yes, I can't punch you in real life, but I can have my character do it.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It's frowned upon to stab people in real life, but not in a fantasy book.
Actually, I know lavender is a special name because lavender is the smell that a certain somebody in my life was obsessed with, and that's why lavender got named that name. Uh,
Okay. So
uh,
you're
so,
familiar with righteous vengeance through your writing.
oh yeah, because I have to be a civil adult who pays taxes and doesn't go to prison.
Hmm.
No worries, Moonmoth. You'll never see a character name after you. The list of people that I'm vindictively writing into my books has gotten much shorter after the first three.
Yeah. Like I kind of got it out of my system, the first one.
Absolutely. So now that we've
I'm
kind of
dead at this phrase. I love that quote. I love that movie. That would be cannibalism, which is frowned upon in most societies.
absolutely, uh, So, speaking of quotes, what would you say is like the quote from the first book that most of your readers either like pick out or like is your personal favorite?
Oh, that is like so hard. I have two. Like obviously there's the tagline, which is again, power without grace is tyranny. It's a line that Dorothy says in book one,
Hmm.
talking about some of the like political like juxtapositions she's seeing in the world. Um, and then like my favorite kind of like romancy, like tensiony quote that I've seen a lot of other people like as well is there's like a little bit of one character having hidden identity and kind of messing with another character. And there's like a power play. So the male is like a servant position and the female is like a lady, without like giving spoilers away. And like Ashley
Right.
will know what I'm talking about. But he brings her dinner into her room and calls her by her first name. And she's like, no, you have to call me lady, like whatever. Like my name is this. Don't call me by like my familiar name. And she says, you need to remember your place next time you come to serve me, which is beneath me. And he says back to her, I'm going to lay in bed tonight dreaming of being beneath you. That's one of my favorites.
Yes, we love that. And just for clarification, because and it no judgment either way. Does your book include spice? Is it closed door, or is it like no spice, PG for everyone?
I'm sorry, I'm reading some of the comments.
No, you're fine.
It's I would say PG-13. Like it's not graphic because when I was dipping my toe into this, I just kept thinking like my mother and father are going to read this,
Fair.
and my grandfather's my number one fan. Like I need to I need to like mitigate this a little bit. So there's some fade to black. Like I'm very descriptive with my encounters of like physical intimacy, but
Mhm.
the actual sex is fade to black a little bit. Um, yeah,
Okay.
for the fact that my grandfather was going to be reading these, but my nano project is going to be a little bit more spicy. It's going to be a little spicy,
We
so
like
we'll
it.
see that. And Papa probably won't get a copy of that one.
Right. Just like, don't judge me, but you're not getting a copy of this because I cannot imagine.
I cannot come to Thanksgiving if I know anyone at this table has read this one.
Right. I mean, Joe, you can read this series, totally good for everyone at the,
Mm-hmm.
the holiday table. This series, don't touch. None
This
of
is
you are allowed to
friends
touch it.
only. This is strangers only.
Right.
Yeah. Also, why I like kind of use a tentative non de plume because I my work name is a different name than my publishing name, like my last name,
Right.
because I don't want my clients to find it and
Yeah.
be like having read this and then you know
Oh, yeah.
have opinions of me.
As a spicy monster author, um,
Yeah.
and the fact that I work in admin, like my author profile is completely separate. My
Mhm.
face may be the same, but like when I'm on
You
Teams,
don't just like Scooby Doo take your.
just pull off my mask and
Mm.
just if I could handle it, I would wear a wig at work every day so that like they
Okay.
didn't know who I was. But unfortunately, I've established myself as the pink-haired menace, and everyone knows I have pink hair. Um,
Hmm.
so I can only be as anonymous as possible.
Right. Yeah, I get that. I toyed with it first when I was doing my TikToks of, like the book flip, my face is
Mhm.
never in them, and I just didn't get a lot of interaction. I'm like, you know
People
what?
like the face.
It
Yeah,
is what it is at this point.
yeah. The algorithm is always like, no, 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 no. You have to be the face of your videos, or else nothing goes nowhere. Um,
Yeah.
we love that.
Yeah.
Um, so now that we kind of have like a bubble of book one, one last question about book one would be, if your readers walk away with anything from book one, what would you want it to be?
Hmm. That's
And it can
so
be
hard because
goofy or serious. Totally up to you.
okay, because my moral of the story, it takes the whole trilogy to get.
Mm,
Um, but book one, I want them to walk away with anticipation. That's
mm,
what I want them to walk away with.
I love that. So where do we walk in on book two? Book two.
Um, that is a spoiler, like the scene is, but essentially you're dropped into the action of Thea and Cole facing political animosity from the people of their kingdom. That's the scene you walk in on. I won't say anything else because
Okay.
that's not terribly over. That's not a spoiler. But
Right.
you're dropped right in the action a couple weeks after book one has ended.
And so, following the same kind of format of book one, do you get like dropped into the action? And then is there a juxtaposition chapter? And then do we like kind of start in a time backwards, or is it full forward ahead for book two?
It's full forward ahead. I mean, like, honestly, I feel like you could easily combine book one and two, and it's just like the story is going to continue to go. I mean, it does slow down a little bit, like, as a story does, you know?
Right. Natural flow.
Um, yeah. I will say, I don't know if anybody's a Princess Bride fan, but are you? um,
Absolutely.
okay, so Buttercup's dream scene where the women is booing at her,
Right.
and that is basically chapter one of book two. That's
Yeah.
inspiration for that.
Love that. Um, so you keep using that word. I don't think that word means what you think it means.
Literally, you said Vixen, her name's Kat. Is that
Oh yeah, it's just cat.
okay? Kat, all of these quotes, I feel like we have the same like movie, like we watch the same movies because I'm dying for all of them. And I was actually thinking about Rocky Horror Picture Show today for some reason. I don't know why, it just popped
It
into my head.
it might have been because a lot of Alan Rickman's like edit clip videos. The other day, I got the count of I think it's the Monte Cristo he was in,
I
or
don't
something
know.
where he's a dashing Spaniard with like a rapier and he's got a mask and he's riding on a horse and he's just hot.
Yeah.
Like all of those were flowing, and then at the same time, I was seeing a bunch of Tim Curry. So like I got an entire FYP of fan edits of Tim Curry, Alan Rickman, and who else? One of the other big three boys, but that's probably why, because they're flooding the FYP right now. Is all of those fan
Yeah.
edits of
Subconsciously just being like given to me, and I'm just thinking about it on my drive to work, being like, I haven't watched that movie in a while. Oh,
Uh, and as the ever forever question, where did you see Tim Curry first? Or like when you think of Tim Curry, what movie do you think of?
Rocky Horror Picture Show, like without
Love
even a
that.
question. I was a scene kid, you
Mm-hmm.
know, in the 2010s, 2009. Um, and I had a local theater near my house that would do those Rocky Horror Picture Show live things where the characters
Yep.
dress up and they like throw stuff in the. So yeah, I was exposed to that at like maybe 13 years old. So that was my first Tim Curry, or the most prominent at least. I maybe saw him elsewhere before that, but
And the Muppets Treasure Island, Ashley. Because they say when you ask someone, where do you know Tim Curry from, you can tell what kind of person they are. Uh,
okay,
and mine is Hexus from Fern Gully. So
okay,
I don't know if you remember that movie, but that might also
no.
be uh, something to do with why I'm a monster romance author. But we won't get into my psychology. Um, but what would you say? He was a pirate. Um, with book two, uh,
Mhm.
what would you say is kind of the theme for book two? So book one is obviously we get married, we've got some political intrigue. And book two, we start out with a lot of social unrest. So what would be the
Mhm.
theme for book two?
Yeah, social unrest is a huge theme for book two, as well as uh, I mean, mental sanity is a big theme for book two, and then just finding yourself as well. It's so hard without giving away spoilers.
Right.
Um, I mean, political unrest is the big one.
So for book two, like we did with book one, did you want to go ahead and read the back so that people kind of know about it? Because obviously this is in celebration of book two's release.
Hmm. Okay, so tagline for book two is love enough? With the weight of the empire resting on their shoulders, Cole and Thea struggle to find their way in these new roles. The dissenter movement is growing, and they struggle to maintain stability in their realm, especially after the traumas and difficulties they've endured. I won't say this because that's a spoiler, I feel like. Um, the traumas and difficulties they've endured. Their love is as strong as ever, but love isn't enough to save an empire. And to make matters worse, an eerie prophecy is hanging over Thea's head, beckoning her to make a decision that will change her life and the empire forever.
Um, so obviously this kind of plays into earlier you discussed that there are themes of like PTSD and mental
Mm-hmm.
health that go through book two. So obviously as a therapist you have some initial research already done. But
Mm-hmm.
did you do any other research for PTSD, anything like that, or is this from like personal experience and personal stories?
So I have a uh, an endorsement on my licensing for therapy, which basically means I'm a specialist in trauma. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of I studied in grad school. Trauma was my one of my focuses. So I have a pretty good theoretical grasp on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also pulled from some life experience as well. For the representation of her, how her anxieties manifest physically, especially, is very similar to my experience that I've had with it.
So what would you say, not just as an author, but also as a therapist, what is the best way for someone to kind of cope with those feelings that they might
Mm,
recognize in themselves now that they've read your book?
that's a hard question. It's so individual. I think to make it really basic, people have to find a way to identify what they're feeling. So for some people
Mhm.
that's therapy, other people that's being creative through their art, through writing, through music, like through their relationships. I think identification is so important. Like obviously I'm an advocate for therapy, but I think there's
Right.
many ways you can do that. And then I think once you have this identification, you have to find ways to cope and then ways to feed your soul, in my opinion. So you've got to have self-care, you have to have passions and hobbies and things that make life like great and beautiful, because there's tons of stuff about life that's hard and stressful and sucky. We have to have the contrast, things that feed our souls and make us happy to be alive. And then we also have to find ways to deal with immediate feelings. So whether that's meditation or breathing techniques or distractions, like everything's valuable. And I think that's one of the reasons I love literature so much, is because not only do you get camaraderie and you can see yourself in characters, it also is a distraction
Hmm.
and it makes you feel happy to maybe be separate from your real life situations for a little bit. Um, but yeah, somebody made a good point that like therapy is not available to everybody. It is outrageously expensive. It is not accessible, unfortunately, to so many people. Um, which I think there's some governing bodies, especially in my state, working to make it more accessible. And like
Hmm.
personally, I work with some people in the homeless population, and I go to the jail 1 day a week, and I see people there. So like we are trying to reach more people. But for those who don't have access to it, finding ways to feed your soul um, and just generally take care of yourself is what I'd recommend. It's such a hard question to answer.
No, you're fine. So for giggles, how does
Yeah.
Thea feed her soul?
Thea's a foodie for sure. So she's a foodie. She's a lover of bubble baths as
Mm,
well. Um, she is a lover of literature. She likes reading. I would say those are kind of her big three.
I like it.
And I'll say Cole, the only thing that feeds his soul is Thea and violence. And we see in book two where that kind of comes
Right,
comes to a head.
fair. Uh, Cole, see a therapist.
Yeah.
I like that.
Cole
So
Cole equals has daddy issues.
precisely. Are you like Cole? You probably have daddy issues. I'm gonna need you to see a therapist and talk to somebody. Um, so before we kind of start to wrap up and tie up any loose ends, is there anything you wanted to talk about specifically, either about you or your books, that maybe we didn't touch on, or that you wanted to touch on again?
I don't think so. I'm just happy to be here and I love all your questions. You're such a good interviewer. I'm having so much fun.
Thank you. Uh, so something I like to ask all of my authors is that if you could, um, if you had the spoons, and it doesn't have to be book related, if you had the spoons, the time, and the money, what would you do right now?
Um, I think I would hunker down somewhere
Fair.
like in the Adirondacks or like the mountains, the woods that but has great Wi-Fi. You have to have
Yep.
great Wi-Fi. And I would just see like what my brain could do with unlimited time. Because I'm pulled in so many directions with just like everyday life. I would love to see what would happen if I just like did the thing. So that's what I would do. I'd find a cabin with great Wi-Fi and um yeah.
Like it.
Yeah.
Um, and as an indie author, and as we're all kind of learning together, what would you say is probably your biggest like whoopsie, or oh man, I wish I had done that better? What's kind of the learning curve that you would give other new authors ahead of time so they don't make the same mistake?
Hmm. I would say two. Um, for me, I would say find a tribe early.
Yup.
And a tribe of people that have done it before.
Mm,
I mean, and both. I mean, people that are on the same page as you, but people that have done it before and just really be open to learning because I did not know what I was doing the first time around at all. And I would say if you're not going to pay an editor, take your time with your editing because
yup.
as much as I hate that, I hate editing. I just want to
Yep.
create, I just want to be like, da, 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 creating. I hate editing. I put book one out with quite a few typos and stuff, and I think if I would have just like pumped the brakes a little bit and not been so excited, and I
Mm,
wanted to publish it on my birthday. That's what the thing was. I'm like, it's coming out on my birthday.
yup.
So I was rushing it. I would have done more of what I did with book two, print it physical form, pour over it a couple more times, and really given it that space. Um, and yeah, and like Ashley said, like have more people put their eyes on it. And like we talked about earlier, having a beta team, an ARC team, just have multiple people look at it. Um,
Right. And just kind of
People
get
that
their
are
eyes on it.
accountable
Yes.
because I did give it to like eight people my first book, and I think only like three of them read it and gave me any feedback. So yeah.
Love that. Unfortunately, industry standard, only about 20% of your ARC readers will review it. And that's essentially the goal, is that every time you find your 20%, and then you build off that 20% with more. And so it becomes like 40% after that, and you just slowly build to a full team. Uh,
Hmm.
I I haven't gotten there yet. We're gonna figure it out together.
Yeah.
um,
I will say,
so
Kat asked a good question if there's any recipes in the book, and there's not, but I love that idea. And I was a baker at a like little coffee shop for 4 years while I was an undergrad, and I feel like I there's one recipe that is like Thea's like comfort food. Maybe I'm gonna make that and put it out on my Instagram. I feel like that's a great idea.
And fantastic marketing because then people
Hmm.
are reminded of it and they think of your book. It's fantastic.
Hmm.
Um, so, uh, what, and the final question I kind of ask everyone is, what can readers expect to see when it comes to your brand? So it doesn't necessarily have to be your books, but like you as an author, what would you say your readers see as your brand?
It's a really hard question. What is yours? Like, what is yours? Let me.
So mine is obviously I have my tagline, but mostly it's this healthy, fun exploration of romance and people. And so my readers really see my brand as when they get a book from me, it has queer representation. It is wholesome in the fact that we're adults and we discuss adult things, and we don't do that miscommunication thing.
Hmm.
And they can trust that every book of mine comes with a happily ever after.
Okay. I would say for me then, despite the fantastical worlds that they might be
Mhm.
set in, you're going to see real people and real problems. And in my opinion, handled in eventually a healthy way. And my books may not end with a happily ever after, but my series will have a happy conclusion.
So we get that full wrapped up with a nice, pretty bow ending.
Hmm. Yeah.
We love that. Um,
I'm not out to
so
sucker punch anybody either. So like that's a
that's fair. I mean,
yeah.
a couple of jabs to the chin are probably okay.
Hmm. You might be a little wobbly, but nobody's going to be down on their backs after they finish reading my stuff.
Actually, I'll punch somebody. Um, so then we'll wrap this up with a nice, pretty bow and have you reintroduce yourself, introduce your books again, your socials, and where people can either find you or where they're going to see you next.
Okay. So again, I'm S. Frasher. My books are in a fantasy romance. We have the first one, Daughter of Truth, and the second one, Queen of Death, is out today on Amazon. Book one is on Barnes and Noble and Amazon. Book two is only on Amazon. My socials across the board are Frasher Writes and Reads. And that's Frasher, Writes and Reads, on TikTok, Instagram, Gmail. I've got my link tree posted in my bios, so you can find my books, my website, things that I'm working on. If you're in Southwest Ohio, you can find me at Mulberry Street Books Saturday, November 12th at 4 p.m. It's a cute little indie used bookstore that features a lot of local authors. And then, kind of nationally, I will be at Books, Gowns, and Crowns in May, which is in Tampa next year.
So excited.
Hmm.
Um, and are there any projects that you already have announced other than obviously book three of the series will eventually come out? Any other series you've already announced?
So if you were on my website, which like nobody is, you briefly saw an announcement of this Greek mythology series I'm working on. Um, which is kind of this really cool, in my opinion, it's cool because I'm the one creating it, amalgamation of like, I had this very religious upbringing, so I have a lot of knowledge of very cryptic religious elements. And then as any person that was a nerd that read when they were, 12 years old, love Greek mythology, of our generation, love Greek mythology. So those two things are kind of coming together, like a melding of those things. And it's a fantasy, more heavy on the fantasy than romance, which is new for me. So that was announced. It's no longer on my website. But that, and then my Nano project, which is a very strong enemies to lovers, forced proximity, a little spicy, that I hope to have out depending how well Nano goes, maybe the end of the winter. So like March.
Fingers
Yeah.
crossed. We love that. Um, so is there anything you'd like to announce or any last minute little like goodies you would like to say before I wrap it up?
I don't think so. I just want to thank you. I had so much fun. Um, this is like the first thing like this I've done. I was so excited to do this. Just I guess for everybody, follow me on my socials. I'm planning to do a giveaway around Christmas or maybe Black Friday, maybe both. I'm having some really cool hardback editions of my book made that will have a different cover. So like I'm gonna do a giveaway with that stuff. Yeah, that's kind of all I have on right now. But thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thank you for joining me, and thank you for allowing me to ask you a bunch of ridiculous questions. And as always, thanks everyone who came in the chat, everyone who
Mhm.
asked us questions or responded to whatever goofiness we were talking about as it was happening. As always, I am Lizzie Strong. I am your resident pink menace. I am your monster author, where the monsters are spooky, scary, but the romance is cute and cuddly. You can find me at lizziestrongauthor.com or here on the Clock app. All of my socials are under my link tree. And I have a new release that came out on Halloween. It's Hauntings and Company. It is a monster romance office story where the tentacle monster almost immediately falls in love with the assistant that he has just hired and has to scramble to keep his company afloat. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to leave them in the comments. If, like me, you have an ADHD squirrel brain and you cannot watch an entire interview from start to finish, do not worry. Within a week, this interview will be available on my YouTube channel. It is the exact same social, Lizzie Strong Author. As well, it will have S. Frasher's link tree as well as mine there. So if you need more socials, they will be there as well. So without further ado, goodbye.
Mhm.
Bye.